Let's get started by taking a look at a couple of models that do a good job with their mechanics for the most part. And looking at how they set up on the mound, we want to see that the front foot is lined up in the middle of the pitching rubber, which is of course lined up with the middle of home plate. We want the front heel on the front edge of the rubber and the back toe on the back edge of the rubber so that both feet are still in contact with the rubber. However, we have a wide base to be able to create weight shift and momentum into the pitch. Next, we want to see a good weight shift to our back foot within their windup. No matter what they do with their arms, it's very important that each pitcher gets their weight back behind the rubber before starting into their stride. Once the weight's back, the next thing we want to do is we want to create a good load into our stride. Okay, so you can see that each of these pitchers does something a little bit different. One's a little more aggressive with how much she's trying to create load, but at this point both of them have a decent load to start. You can see that both pitchers have bend in their knees and both pitchers have flex at their hips, so this should allow them to be athletic and aggressive in starting their stride. So this good load along with what their drive foot does on this next step is going to determine how aggressive they can be with their stride. As they start their stride, what should happen with their drive foot is as they're pushing off, we simply want to lift the heel straight up, roll directly over the tip of that toe, and then glide along the mat until that front foot lands flat. Once we get to this point where that foot lands flat, we're going to check several things. Let's start with the lower body. And looking at that drive foot, we should see that it's come off the pitching rubber a good distance if we're able to create an aggressive stride. We should still see that the toe is down, that the heel is up, and that the shoelaces are pretty close to still directly towards our catcher. We also want to make sure that there's still some load left in that back leg, so we should see that it has a little bit of a flex in that back knee, that it's not locked out in straight. This way we still have some energy stored up to be able to help us with the second part of our pitch. Our front foot should be directly on our power line. So what a power line is it's going to start in the middle of the pitching rubber and it's going to run through whatever target you're trying to hit. So in this case, both of these pitchers were trying to throw right down the middle of home plate. So you should see that both of them have a line that's going right to the middle of home plate. You should see that the toe is directly on that. We also want to have about a 45-degree angle with that front foot. So when working with young girls that don't understand what an angle is, I oftentimes will talk to them about pointing their toe at 2 o'clock. If you imagine a big clock running around that stride foot and the power line pointing straight at 12 o'clock, if they're right-handed, their toe should point at approximately 2 o'clock. Lefties should be at about 10 o'clock. That's going to help them open that hip up so that they are able to let the ball come by their body. And looking at the upper body, we want that glove arm to be extended out towards home plate, and it should be approximately shoulder high at this point. We want the chest to be open, so you should be able to see what's on their shirts at this point. We want the head splitting the legs in half, and we want the throwing arm to be loose, flexible, with the ball above the shoulder at this point. Okay, it's very important that that arm is loose and flexible so that we're able to create good whip through that second part of the pitch. Next, on the second part, we want to see that the arms pull down together. So it sort of looks like the pitcher's doing a big jumping jack with their arms. They're going to work in sync as they pull down that second part of the pitch. And at the same time the arms are pulling down, we want to see the back knee close the gap up between the front knee, all while maintaining a good strong front leg and good posture with their head. So you can see every frame on both of these pitchers, their arms and their back leg are moving. So that at release, if we drew a line from the pitcher's shoulder all the way down to her knee, we should see that the knee, hip, and shoulder are pretty much lined up at this point. We know that that backside is closed up the majority of that gap then. Okay, release, at this point we're going to have a violent, aggressive, quick, sudden snap of the ball out of our fingers. If we have good whipping action with our arm from keeping it loose and using those fingers to pull against the ball, We should see that happening right here. And then if that happens like it's supposed to, what should happen naturally with the follow through is simply that the hand's going to relax. It's going to follow the ball out. And then as soon as the ball's out of our hand, we want to make sure that that back knee continues to drive forward so that we close up that body and get squared up ready to play defense. Okay, that's pretty close to what you should see if we watch these pitchers in motion. Again, they're going to look a little bit different in their windup. The middle of the pitch is super similar. Again, if you watch, they're really using their legs, they're being aggressive, they're staying strong on that front side, so you notice that their body doesn't fall forward through that leg at the end. They're playing defense even with that front leg and not falling forward through it. So again, this is pretty close to what we should see. Now let's take a look at some of the most common mistakes.